I like going fishing whenever you can. I think you learn more the more you go. There's no substitute time on water. Wettest hooks catch the most fish. So you get a lot of people that will say, don't fish on full moon, don't do this, don't do that. I've had some of the best days ever on a full moon. Make excuses to go, don't make excuses not to.
You're listening to the Rising Tidecast, the podcast for sharing the stories, the lessons, and all the good stuff from legends in the marine industry. Welcome to another episode of the Rising Tidecast. Today we have the one and only Roddy Findlay. He's a very accomplished captain and marlin fishing expert based here in Sydney. He's got a very deep background fishing and boating, and he's run quite a few amazing vessels, Vikings, Grady Whites, even owned a Grady, and you've built your own family boat, Murrifin, with his brother and dad, and we've been on some pretty epic trips together on and off the water. So welcome, Roddy.
Thanks very much, Steve, and that's very flattering. Thank you.
Yeah, stoked to have you on. We've had many great chats, and I think you actually probably part of the reason why I got so into fishing in Sydney too, catching so many marlin with you, basically from the get-go. I see you as quite the master at the craft, but your journey in boating, I think, began with your family a long time ago, and you've run a lot of amazing boats. You still do, Vikings and Grady's and stuff, and when I think of you and a boat, I think of Murrifin. So tell us a little bit about Murrifin for people that don't know.
Yeah, well, so the original Murrifin, Dad built from scratch before I was born. So I grew up into it. I don't know life without a Murrifin. There was a period where we'd sold the old boat and hadn't launched the big boat. It was probably the only time we never had family Christmases on the water. I didn't spend every Easter school holidays the entire period out on the water. But yeah, so my family took me boating from I was obviously born in April, and they took me out on the boat for about 2 weeks later. So from a very young age, I grew up doing it. My whole childhood was spent in the Northern Beaches area. The boat was always kept. We lived in southwest Sydney and used to drive an hour and a half to the boat every weekend, but we spent my whole childhood, every weekend. Every Christmas, you'd be up the river for a couple of weeks, go up the Hawkesbury. And then, so that progressed as we got older. We started exploring a bit more.
What a way to grow up too.
Oh, yeah.
Awesome.
I'm extremely lucky and privileged to grow up that way.
So tell us about Murrifin, what is it? How would you describe it to someone who hadn't seen the green machine before?
It's a complete one-off. My brother designed it at about the age of 15. We started building it when he turned 17. I was about 12 and a half, 13, like mid-90s when we started building it. We relocated to a property where we could build a shed to start building it. And Dad was always talking about building a bigger boat or a newer boat. As a kid growing up especially, I never thought it would happen. And then we built a shed, and then, bit by bit, we started placing it all together.
Is this something that you always did, or what was the why behind building Murrifin in the first place?
I think Dad always wanted something that was his own. He had his own mark on it. My mum's side of the family that grew up in the Northern Beaches built boats up here. My grandfather never met, Eric, he built a few boats, and a few of them are still on Pittwater and not far from this studio. So the first boat Dad built and the second boat were probably purely on cost. He was an engineer working for Volvo Trucks as like a state manager. And a lot of the materials he built the boats out of came from the parts that were packaged in. All the parts were packaged in marine ply, and he used to unpackage the parts and set the building materials aside.
That's awesome.
And build a boat for himself out of it. The original Murrifin was built as a family boat to go up the river. It was never built as a sport fishing boat. It only ever did about 8 or 9 knots. And he wanted to build a bigger, faster boat. When we started building it, everyone in the area probably fished in a 35-foot Caribbean. And not many production 40-foot boats existed. There was Rivieras, but they were not probably a sport fishing boat, and he wanted to put his own twist on it. And from a cost point of view, if you built it out over 5 years, you could just buy it and do it as you could afford it.
Was sport fishing a big thing in his life growing up?
The fishing side of it for Dad, he liked bottom fishing, going out with some mates, but he was going home at 1 or 2 o'clock on a Sunday afternoon. He'd had enough. And me, my brother and my dad started going out offshore more and more. I remember going offshore probably from about 6 or 7. And my brother was 5 years older than me, and we used to just go out and bottom fish, and we have to convince him to put one outrigger out. He didn't want to put both out.
Why? What was that for?
We just didn't have the gear. We didn't have any trolling rods. We didn't. Okay. I remember getting excited the first time I put out 5 rods that we owned that all had lever drag reels. I caught my first marlin on a Penn Senator with a star drag on it. So we didn't have the tackle, but as my brother and I got older and more interested in it and exposed to more people in the game fishing club, we wanted to do it more and more. And it's just a natural progression. You fish in the river and you catch a couple of brim and tailor, and then you want to catch a couple of tuna, and then you want to catch something bigger and bigger. And catching our first marlin was probably, that set us all on a path.
You realized you had the sickness then.
Yeah. And we we didn't have anyone show us. We went for a long period of we probably did our first marlin fishing comp in 1992 when I was about, I suppose, 7. And we didn't catch our first one until 1994. So it took a few years. And then it was another 2 years before we caught another one. So it was a very slow understanding, and trying to figure things out. And then as Craig and I got exposed to more and more people, and we had some guys come fishing with us, it was very hard to convince someone to come fishing on a 30-foot boat that topped out at 8 knots, and you had to troll the whole way out and troll the whole way in.
Yeah, that's not had a great record to it.
No, with a bunch of kids with no idea and no tackle. But as we got better and we started to learn a bit more stuff, we actually started, Craig was still a junior when we caught our first marlin, so we started, and then I became the angler because I was the kid and we could just concentrate on winning something, doing a few fishing comps or fishing on a club day. And then that evolved into building the boat and then going around and measuring all the really good boats we knew and trying to work out what we wanted and what depths things should be and what covering board height should be and how much falls in a floor or the layout of engine rooms. We were obsessed. We'd always crawl around slipways and look at boats underwater. And
I've seen you crawling around in the Viking factory. I think there's something about that curiosity that makes you guys and the way you do it and the way you think about it. It even translates not just for boat building, right? I think it's for fishing too. It's wanting to understand that deep curiosity about how things work, what's the best setup for different things. What do you think, how did that play a role in your life growing up?
Well, it obviously kept me away from doing the wrong thing, but I was always obsessed with playing with fishing tackle and tying knots, looking at what other people were using and trying to translate that to what we were doing or vice versa, or looking at someone that was successful and thinking that was probably more luck than success, trying to break it all down.
Discerning eye still.
Yeah. I think that started at a young age, and watching the people who owned the boats and what they did for jobs. And it had a huge influence as a kid. I wanted to drive a charter boat or be a charter boat captain and fish for a living. But I quickly realised that, my mum actually made me do my trade, but the people I met in the game fishing club were, owned their own business, they were electricians or they were that. And that sort of that put a lot of drive in me to start my own business, etc. So it influenced a long path of my life, that's for sure.
I love that. I want to get into that more in a bit, but take me through the build of Murrifin, that you were involved in. So how old were you? Where was it all happening? Who was involved? Yeah.
Dad always spoke about it. My brother used to draw boats from a very young age. He entered a boat design competition, I still remember, when he was about 13, 14, and drew a complete set of drawings for a 38-footer and submitted them. He didn't win, but he was showing he wanted to be a naval architect. That was his path he wanted to go down. I still remember coming home from football training and the phone rang and my brother and dad were at his work drawing the boat out. There's no CAD drawing at that point in the early 90s. So it was all, they drew it out on a table and we rolled it out and we had a set of frame sets. And then we'd move from our smaller original family home to an area where we could, in Bargo, where we could build a shed. Built the shed. I think my parents struggled to afford that. So I don't know how the whole boat building process was going to go, but as we laid it together, we bought the timber, bought big piles of Oregon. I remember lofting the frame sets. So we get bits of Oregon and you'd drawn in full scale the frame sets, and then you would draw those lines, transcribe those lines onto bits of Oregon and cut them out on a bandsaw. Do that, do all the port side, then do all the starboard side, then join all the frames together, stack them all against a wall. And at this point, it probably just felt like something you're doing after school. I was only about 13. One day you got all these frames stacked against the wall and then you put a jig together and you sit them all together and then you've got a skeleton of a boat sitting in front of you and suddenly it gets a hell of a lot more serious.
Yes, very real.
Yeah, very real.
What was that like? I mean, at that young age and you get to kind of see that and be part of that. How do you think that, I guess, inspired you or ignited a passion for what you're doing now?
I've always loved being on the ocean and building that boat. I think both my brother and I in our later years can't quite comprehend how we ever finished it, especially in Dad's position. Now we're both got our own families with kids. But it drove a lot of what I do now, and that whole process took us about 5 years to get it to the water, 2 years to just get the hull to roll over stage, which should have probably, but the boat got launched very incomplete, and then we just kept working away on it, and we couldn't wait to take it out fishing because, we'd spent 5 years waiting for it or working towards it. So, yeah.
The big question is, did you catch a marlin when you actually went out on it?
Not the first few days, no. No, I remember we caught a few striped tuna or something. The first time we went fishing, we didn't have clears, we didn't have outriggers, we didn't have any interior fit, we didn't have carpet, we didn't have cushions, we didn't have ceiling liners, didn't have all sorts of stuff. We were just mad keen to get out and give it a run. And you can imagine driving a boat for the first time that is not being driven by anyone else, trying to steer it around, and it's a wet boat, so we're copping lots of spray in the bridge, and we're like, oh, wow, this is...
That clears, that's fine.
Yeah, but we were having the time of our lives. You couldn't have wiped the smile off our face. I still remember the first time we did the initial sea trial with it. Dad wanted the boat to do 24 knots flat out, and we got to 20 knots, and he was like excited, and then we got to 24 knots, and it was ecstatic. But we had a lot of problems to solve. We had vibration issues, and there was always a problem-solving path, and the boat's always been constantly evolving.
What were some of the biggest challenges of building a boat? Because, there's custom boats, there's production boats, and then there's do it on your own in a shed without a naval architecture formal degree. I would imagine there's a lot of figuring things out and things that come up. What are you thinking back during the build process that you were part of? What were some of those bigger challenges that you guys faced?
Probably just keeping motivated, I suppose. But my dad and brother drove that a lot more than myself. You see a lot of projects get to a point and they stop because, if there's one guy driving it, they lose interest, where when there was three of us involved, I think it all kept egging each other on. You come home from school. When we're doing the laminating process, we'd laminate one panel a night. So 5 nights a week we'd be out in the shed till 10 o'clock rolling out fiberglass resin, laying all the cloth down, coming in with big piles of resin on us on our skin and legs. It wouldn't... but the motivation side of it, I think, was that would be the hardest part. The technical side of it, my dad and brother are freaks. They could work that out, and that continued to get worked out from after it got launched. It wasn't like we put a perfect product in the water. It was far from perfect, and it's been a long period to get it to what it is now.
So how many years has it been in the water for?
I was launched November 2001. She's coming on 24 years old. And we could design a better boat, no doubt, but we couldn't make a boat with better accommodation in it for its size. We couldn't make a better fishing boat. We could probably definitely make a better travelling running boat. But even that, it does well. It's unbelievable how well it came out, and considering the circumstances it was constructed. And that's kudos to my dad and my brother. I didn't get to influence that at any point.
But that's awesome. Just something that you build that you're proud of that actually works. And you guys win tournaments and stuff. You grew up going fishing together all the time and spending that family time together. That's pretty cool.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, no. And I think the only thing we wanted to do, my brother and I wanted to do, was win our club competition once. That was our goal. And we sort of did that the second year it was in the water. And that was just through pure perseverance. Yeah. But we started to work out the thing we'd built was actually quite good at its job. And we were probably always a little bit critical of it because we weren't exposed to lots of other boats, but then you go on a few other boats and you realise, wow, our one's much better. Yeah, our one's much better at a whole bunch of scenarios.
What do you think that's due to?
I think due to a lot of nous, a lot of the way we've built it, how strong it is. It's just, I think, a bit of it's luck, but a lot of it's nous. This was the third boat my dad had built, and he'd obviously spent a lot of time crawling around looking at things. My brother didn't have the naval architecture experience, but he was measuring and looking at lots of existing hull shapes. And the hull's not perfect, but it's certainly an awesome fishing boat. And it's certainly the one, if I had a real big giant Marlin on, I'd still want to be driving it after it because it's a great boat in reverse.
Well, I think you have had some big giant Marlin on.
Oh, yeah.
Do you have a standout story or two from, I guess, those early days or on Murrifin?
Yeah, our first tournament wins and stuff were all cool, but the best thing we ever did, and it was 2008, was the first year we took it to Cairns, and my brother had been living in England, and we'd sort of prepped the boat and we're building a game chair for it. We built everything on it. We built the outriggers, we built the bow rail, we built bow rollers, everything was sort of, we cut it out, got it fabricated ourselves or designed it. We were madly distracted trying to construct the game chair for the boat and finalise the prep. And then the night we left, we chugged off through the night to go to Cairns. And we always picking Dad up in Hamilton Island. Dad had always wanted to take his boat to the Whitsundays. You can imagine he'd really been confined to the Hawkesbury River. And my brother and I had been to Cairns and fished with other professional captains and worked as crew. So we picked him up in Hamilton Island. He couldn't wipe the smile off his face. We fished it all the way up the coast, and then we had an engine problem in behind Dunk Island, not far from Cairns. We had a leaking injector, which was a problem, and we were all worried that was going to upend with a trip. And we got into Cairns and managed to get a mechanic down who was an absolute legend. And he pulled our injector pump up, fixed it, put it back on the next day. And we decided to go out for a day's fishing. I said to Craig, we've got to go out and test this. Like, go out and do a day fishing. And
good testing.
Yeah, go out. And so we ran it out, put the big marlin baits in the water, and it was literally 5 minutes. And I was at the helm, my brother scream out. And, we ended up hooking and catching about a 750, 800 pounder in the first 5 minutes. And awesome. With just me, my brother, and my dad, and my apprentice at the time, Jack Howard. And he was my Jack was on the rod. There was only 4 of us on board.
Bit of chaos on deck for sure.
Yeah. Well, it all went super smooth. I've got video of that. That memory will go with me to the grave. That was pretty epic.
What a set of circumstances to just go, yep. It works.
Well, we probably wouldn't have fished that way if the boat didn't have the problem, we wouldn't have done the day with Dad. Dad was just doing the trip up the coast with us. And he caught his first marlin on the trip up off Townsville, just, a little black marlin in close. So
that would have been awesome for him. Like, that was a dream of his, doing it on a boat he built in a completely different waterway, doing something he probably always wanted to do. Like, what was that like for him?
That was one trip where, if you can imagine, my dad would argue a bit at times. And that was one trip where Dad didn't say a word. He had a smile from ear to ear the whole trip.
The reef will do that to you, I think.
Yeah. The whole experience was gold. And I can't recommend going up there enough, as you've seen before already.
Yeah. So take me back then to, your mom made you get a trade. You saw these guys that were in the fishing clubs. They had these beautiful sport fishes, but they also had their own businesses and trades. And so your mom said, you have to do this. And you did it. So tell me a bit about your business, Excel Cabling.
If given the freedom, no doubt I would have gone to Cairns as a 16-year-old, and that's probably all I would have done and known.
Decade for life.
Yeah. And I wasn't that interested in school. I definitely didn't work that hard. I probably spent a lot of time staring out the window, wanting to be on the ocean. So I left school in year 10, did my trade, and was working in the fit-out industry. And then doing that style of work I found challenging because it was a project. It had 8 weeks to do it. We had a short time frame, and you couldn't miss schedules. In the commercial industry, there's no leeway.
Yeah, right.
There's liquidated damages at the end of the contract, which costs a lot of money. So I found that side of it interesting, but I was always, as soon as I had the opportunity, as soon as I finished my trade, I was going to go to Cairns. That in itself is not an easy thing when no one knows who you are. I was very lucky that the people I knew within the game fishing club sort of helped me into the job. I tried to look around and get a job somewhere, and Bill Bilson, who I ended up working for, he was a Broken Bay Club member, and one of his best mates, Wombat, Cole Grimes, who I'm sure you would have seen around the traps, he rang Bill and put in a good word for me, and I ended up on Bill's boat. But the first time I went to Cairns, I'd never been on a charter before. I'd never seen the Great Barrier Reef before. I didn't think I was green, but I was extremely green. Luckily, I knew a fair bit about an electrical trade, and I knew a fair bit about boats. So my fishing was hopeless, and my boat knowledge was just enough. And then, luckily I learned a huge amount from Bill.
To the deckies out there listening, it's an amazing job, but it's a lot of work and a lot of learning, I'm sure, for you. So what was that like for you, and what was that first season like?
It was an extremely tough learning curve. The other crewman I was working with, who's Dave Kasser, who was an extremely good fisherman, way better than me, it was only really me and him, and we were both young. We were both 20, so we didn't have a really good number one decky, I suppose, that knew the whole job in its entirety. We got Steve Haygarth Bill employed Steve Haygarth, like Hoggy, for a couple of weeks, and Hoggy put us through, showed us some stuff. But
boot camp?
Yeah, a bit of boot camp, but Hoggy's such a fun guy to be around, and he was probably doing little bits and pieces we didn't know about on the side. But my first day fishing up there, we caught a 750 pounder on a lure on Linden Bank on a day trip. I still remember seeing the fish come in because Bill said, I'm going to go out here, troll a few lures around, have a look, and we'll put some baits out. I'd never seen bait rigging of that size before. And so I was trying to get my head around that. And staring at the bait rigging table, and Bill said, "Oh, here comes a fish on the left." And I turned around, and I saw it approaching the lure, and I was like, Jesus, that's a big marlin. It could look like a crocodile, is all I could describe it as. It was wide as anything, and it came in, ate the lure, and I thought, we're not going to hook this surely. And hooked it up, and then we cleared the gear, and I was used to all that period. And then Bill's driving was just like you're going up 3 levels. And then I remember Dave grabbing the gloves, thank God, because I was terrified. And he got it on the leader and jumping, and he let the leader go, and the rod snapped down on the covering board, and we were just, it was all happening. And it was big marlin. And I was like, I got to the end of the day, and I remember ringing Craig and telling him about it and saying, I don't know if I'm cut out for this. Like, it blew my mind. And then that season is still the best season I've seen on the reef. We end up catching 105. If I was better at my job, me alone, we probably would have caught 120. We lost a few for different reasons or whatever. There was a lot of big marlin there in that year as well. So, yeah, it was a huge learning curve.
What an awesome experience, though. And I mean, to where you are now, like knowing and also thinking back to when you first started and were interested in marlin fishing and didn't have anyone to give you a fast track, going there and you're getting all the answers, straight away kind of thing, and then putting it into practice every day, because you would have had a massive season too.
Yeah, we fished 90 days straight. Like, we started on the 7th of September and we pulled it up, I think the 10th or 12th of December. Like, he went right through. Bill was he's still one of the few owner-operators, privateers, where he owned his own boat. So he had to work efficiently. Probably his attractiveness for getting 2 young guys that he didn't have to pay him much money to pump up his profit margin a bit. But he was an exceptional teacher. And we still had a great season. And we come second in the Lizard Island comp that year. We won a few dailies. We did do well in the end. I'm probably downplaying some part of it. And I'd always wanted to go there. I mean, I was always looking in the back of he had an ad in the back of Hardboard Tackle magazine with a giant marlin. You'd watch videos like the Malcolm Florence videos with the giant black marlin on the Great Barrier Reef. I dreamt of going there. I remember seeing Lizard Island for the first time and just, was in awe of the place because it was something I'd seen on a VHS copy that I used to hire and watch till it was worn out. It was a dream to do it. And I did it for a couple of years with Bill.
So you went back for the second season, a bit more prepared, bit more knowledge.
And the second season was way more enjoyable for myself. My whole body was falling apart. I was having heat rash problems. I have all the issues with, like, I used to get real bad infections in my hands. So looking after my hands, obviously you're handling fish every day, you're getting nicks, cuts, everything's wet. And then and it's hot. My body was falling apart by the end of the first season. I lost weight and I got a lot stronger, but by the second year, I enjoyed it a lot more. And we got to fish with, people I've become friends with for a long period of time. I got to fish with, Tracy Melton, who owns Melton Tackle. I got to meet a guy called Ben Travis, who then took me to Carbo for the Bisbees. I got to do a lot of stuff, and that was all thanks to the exposure Bill gave me.
Awesome jump off point. How many seasons did you end up doing up there working with Bill? And then what took you away from the reef?
During my second season, there was a client that I knew, Matt Sanders, and he said to me, "What are you doing after the season finishes?" And I said, my previous boss basically put an ultimatum on me. I was happy to let you go last season, but you're not going next season. I said, well, there's no way I'm not going. Yeah. So I'm going. At the end of that season, I was going to use my wages to fund my business, to start a business. And so unbeknown to Matt and I, we'd worked very closely around each other, me from my old boss, like on similar projects where I was on one floor and he was on the other doing government jobs and stuff. So we got talking about that, and he said, what are you going to do at the end of the season? And I said, well, I'm going to start my own business just to do for 9 months, and then I'll come back up here. And he said, when you get back, ring me. I've got a lot of work. I could help, we could do a bit of work. And I said, okay. So I got back, I rang him, and of the 10 people that probably say to you, you're starting your business, I'll give you a bit of work. He was true to his word. He gave me a job to do for the Breast Cancer Foundation, which I had to do for free.
Yeah.
As a donation.
Yeah.
And he said, you need to prove what you can do. And he rang around and got suppliers to supply me the gear. I did the job for him. And then he said, that all went really well.
Proving grounds.
Yeah, he said, now I've got a job no one wants to do. And he goes, you can do that. I said, where is it? And he said, it's in Dubbo. So that's how I ended up in Dubbo, and that's where I met Nigel that you now know, and led on to what I'm sort of doing now and the people I know now. So I ended up driving to Dubbo at 21, just started my business, working with a builder. I was very confident on the job I was doing. I knew my trade and the fit-out process pretty well. Yeah, it was a big learning curve starting your own business at that age. And having that amount of contract work in front of you. And that just rolled on. He had a lot of work and I could just keep working for him to the point where it got to the next season and I didn't think I could commit to doing 90 days for Bill. So I ended up just doing little short fill-in periods over the next few years, some for Bill, some for Bob Jones and some other few different people. And help Matt, one of Matt's mates, Greg Beard, had a little private 32-foot Mustang with stern drives in it, not a game fishing boat at all. But he just
be careful when you took that one out on outside of the reef.
Yeah. They wanted me to come and help him with that, and I like that they were all mates of mine. And Greg was fishing with me on Murrifin as well, so I went up and drove that boat with him. Got my first bit of experience of understanding the reef and getting a bit of that knowledge in the back of my head. Yeah, so did that. One season I fished on about 3 or 4 different boats. I jumped, just filled in gaps. Wombat went to work in the Bisbees and I filled in for him for a couple of weeks.
It's amazing where it can take you. Like, obviously, you find the passion, the thing that you love to do, and then it opens up all these opportunities because you're so laser focused on like, I've got to do this. I must get back there.
Yeah, my journey to the Bisbees was quite funny because it was the second job I did in Dubbo. I got this phone call out of the blue from Ben Travis and said, Roddy, you want to come and fish the Bisbees? I've bought a boat. And I'm like, okay, but I can't. I've got this contract. I'm doing this job. Like, I'm in Dubbo. And I ring Matt the next day and I said, oh man, I got the best job opportunity. I'd never really been overseas at that point. I went to Fiji as a 6-year-old, I think, with the family. But outside of that, I'd never left the country. Didn't have a passport.
Right.
So I said to Matt, I can't. Oh man, I'd love to do it, but I can't. He said, when's the dates of it? And I gave it to him and he said, that's right at the end of stage 1. We'll just add a week to the job and push stage 2 down the track. I said, you sure? And he said, yeah, don't say no. And so rang Ben back and said I can do it. And then I thought, geez, I don't have a passport. So the passport office was one of the projects I'd done with a previous boss. And I had Jackie, the IT girl's number still. So I rang her and I said, I used to work for Graham Munro, but you remember him? She goes, yeah. I said, I really need help. I need a passport in about 2 weeks. And she said, just come in and see me. So I got that in the back door, went and did a week fishing with Matt. Came back, my dad had picked up my passport from Jackie, drove me around to the international terminal and I flew to LA.
Amazing.
Yeah. It was pretty wild when I was only, turning 22.
Yeah. But saying yes to those things, I think is so cool. And to see kind of, I guess, fast forwarding where you're at now and what you're doing and the boats you're running, like it wouldn't have probably been possible without that passion for and just saying yes and having all these experiences. So tell me a little bit about the Bisbees, but then I want to know, I guess, when the kind of vessel management, captaining part got in there.
Oh, the Bisbees was a mind-bending experience, seeing all the boats, seeing the size of them, how fast they were. It was certainly nothing like what was in Australia.
Did you get caught crawling on any?
Pardon? No, yeah.
Doing research?
Yeah. Well, yeah. There was there's a few things that can't go out to public knowledge, but great experience. I got back, finished the job in Dubbo, and then from a work point of view, it was just rolling on. Like, there was so much the work there I could do and I was making decent money doing it. And I set myself a goal of buying a house. So I sort of went away from I could only do it sort of seasonally. I could only do it for short periods in Cairns. So I got to do bits and pieces here and there. And then I'd done a fair bit of time and I was helping a few people within the club. I'd go fishing with them or someone would hear about me and say, could you come out and help me? So I'd do a bit of fishing with them or just go out and re-rig their tackle or look at it, just much like you would in a fishing club anyway, trying to get someone skilled up so they can catch a few fish, have some success and hopefully carry on doing what you like doing. And that's how life sort of rolled. I got married, had a couple of kids, and then, before the second kid was born, I decided I hadn't done anything to better myself for a while. So I went and did all my captain's tickets, sat my MED tickets, sat my master's ticket, obviously could compile enough sea time between all my bits and pieces to try and present a reason they could give it to me. Acquired that and then literally thought, I'll use this as something down the track, like another 5 or 6 years away. And then straight away the phone started ringing. Like, I got asked to drive Gorilla for 7 days because there was a problem with the captain at the time, not on the boat, but with the charter had to move from the boat onto this boat. So I ended up doing that, which was to help. Was one of Bill's clients, so that was all sort of working out really well. I did that trip and I was like, oh man, this was awesome. Like, never felt I was stressed, but I loved every part of it, if that makes sense.
What was it about the new kind of, I guess, role on a boat like that excited you?
Well, you get to introduce people, like, especially on the Great Barrier Reef, you get to introduce people to stuff that it's just, they're going to have a good time. It's impossible not to, even if it's really windy. So I suppose it was, I remember listening to Eric's podcast, the whole pleasure boating side of it. It was fun. There was the stress of where do you anchor? What are we going to do now? Is the boat running okay? In that instance, I wasn't even having, Statue was looking after the boat so well, I didn't have to do much. But yeah, and then I suppose when COVID started to roll around and work started to slow down, I was looking for bits and pieces to do. And that's when I ran into Eugene in the fishing shop. And he said, could you help us? I want to go out with my son. I've had this boat and I'm building another, I'm just about to finish the 37 Grady. And I said, yeah, I'll come fishing with you a day or two. And then that spurred into like a full-blown thing with Eugene and the whole Callister program, and then working with other people, other clients of Short Marines that I've jumped on and helped. But it's a very hard job to do as a guiding thing for one day and have any success. You need to make sure the boat's configured correctly. You probably need a week of working out everything's right on the boat, making sure the right gear on the boat, and then seeing the right circumstance to use it.
Setting yourself up for success and them up for success too.
Correct,
because then they're having a better time too. Tell us a little bit about the Callister program. What does that look like? Because I would imagine it's similar now to kind of what you saw way back when at the fishing club with like the guys that had their business, on the side almost, and then did the fun thing, but maybe one's a bit more than the other.
Yeah, well, the journey with Callister was sort of, we both dipped our toe in the water. He wanted me to come and help him for a day. Then it turned into 2 days. And then on the second day, I said, the tuna fishing's really good between here and Port Stephens. We should do that. And he was really apprehensive about the whole, it's Port Stephens is a long way away for his level of experience at the time. So I said, don't worry, we can get there. And we went and had a good day. We caught a bunch of yellowfin tunas and did it again, caught some more on the way back. And then I think we did 3 days or so. And then he said, we'll go marlin fishing when there's a few marlin around. And then we ended up going marlin fishing. And that day, we've got to do more than one day, because if we go out one day and we miss, we'll be likely to see something in the miss that will make us successful the following day. But if we put 2 days in, we've got a good chance of running into one, being calm enough to convert it in a switch baiting sense, or however we look at it. So the day we went marlin fishing was super rough. And I thought, we got limited time here. They're all getting a bit seasick downstairs, and I'm up in the tower on my own, and I'm looking at the watch and I'm looking at the ocean. I'm thinking, I've probably got less than an hour before they're going to want to go in. And the boat's getting rocked around a lot. It's a new boat, so there's things that we've got.
A big tower on it.
Big tower on it, and it was all custom made. So there was things to tighten up, tune up, work out. I still remember seeing the big striped marlin dorsal fin appear on the teaser and thought, this is perfect. Like, wound it in, thought there's no way we're going to catch this though, because it's our first shot at one, and everyone downstairs was very new to switch baiting, and I'd sort of given them the spiel, and Eugene's son, Lachlan, put the bait out. Everything went off like a tee. The fish never gave us too much trouble, and we got it by the bill. And that night, I could see Eugene was pretty happy. Well, I think we went in not long after, because we had some stuff on the boat to tighten up. And then he rang me after that trip, and he said, I want to, that was in December, and he said, I want to go fishing in January. And I said, cool, just let me, I'll be around. My work's a bit slow. It's no builders really go back to work until after Australia Day. And he said, no, like all of January. Like every day you're available and the weather's good, we are going. And I'm like, oh shit, this is getting a lot more serious. So then that escalated quite quickly into, he said he wanted to go to Fraser Island. And I started working out that the Grady was, the Grady could have definitely done Fraser Island, but it was going to be limitless in what he wanted to go and see. He wanted to go to Lady Musgrave and areas that are a bit further afield. So we started talking about, you could trade this boat into something a bit bigger, and that's how the Viking came about.
Well, there's a theme here. It's the bug. As soon as you catch it,
I
don't think any of his boats have ever seen a tuna on purpose on the day after that day.
No, he doesn't. No, me and our interests are very aligned. That we both love marlin fishing, and I never expected it to go the way it has, where he wanted to get involved in tournament fishing and the club and put a crew together. I always thought he would do it a bit on the side, but it was going to be more just taking him and his son fishing and exploratory fishing a bit.
For guys like that don't have a lot of time and that do just love getting out there, like what do you see that once they get into it and the club part of things and tournaments, like what is it about being involved in that, because I'm inside and outside of fishing, like that changes, or that's such an amazing thing, I guess, that adds to his life?
It's just an outlet. It's an amazing distraction, like if you're doing something for work that doesn't make you entirely happy, then you've got something to look forward to. I mean, I always found that when I was doing my fit out work, I couldn't wait to work a 12-hour day to get out on the water the next day myself. So I sort of probably pushed that onto other people a bit, and I'm very pro go fishing more, Work as hard as you possibly can to make the time to go fishing, or put yourself in a scenario where you can. And with Eugene, it was always meant to be, he called it Marlin University. He wanted me to teach him why I was going places, how we were doing it, why we would change from the different techniques we were doing on day-to-days.
Shares that similar curious mindset.
Yeah. And so that's how it started. And then I think he just I think he found it way more relaxing when I was just doing it all. He didn't have to worry about parking the boat, or if something broke, he wasn't the one limping the boat home trying to work out what to do next. I'd just that was all on me. So I think that made his fishing more enjoyable. So I ended up in that role with him, which then other people started noticing and asking me to do it more. So
then what transpired, and then what do you think is the reason that, I guess, people look for someone like you, or that this happened to you?
With Eugene's boat, we eventually got it to Fraser. We're up there doing what we had set about doing, which was, I think even he was a bit apprehensive until the last minute. He was always right on the edge of the limit of like what he wanted to do.
Commitment?
Yeah. And trying to work out, a bit apprehensive about it all until he got exposed to it. He didn't know what living on the boat would be like, a liveaboard would be like, staying in the lagoon. He never experienced any of that, and I was still very pro pushing it. So we went and did that trip, and in amongst all of that, Nigel that I met in Dubbo, he was working for a guy from Dubbo that was looking to buy a boat, Wes. He bought a boat from Short Marine, and then I took him fishing a few times in that with his sons out of Sydney. And then I was scheduled to take him fishing with his sons in Sydney, and I was in Fraser Island, and Eugene had to go to work, and he had to do a couple of days' work on shore. And so there was this time period when I said, I don't really want to fly to Sydney. I reckon you should come up here. And so Wes came up and he got to experience what the Viking was like. And we went around the top of Fraser, and I could see that lit something in him. He saw there was an avenue of boating that he'd never been exposed to. So he came straight back and bought the 54 that was sitting there. And then I remember him buying it and going, what are we going to do now, Roddy? And I said, I'll put some ideas together. So I made this draft calendar for the Cairns season last year.
Well, tell us about your first day out in that 54, because I got photos of that and I was just like, oh my God, I'm so jealous.
With Wes, we wanted to catch his son, his first Marlin, and he's an extremely time-poor guy. He's the most time-poor guy I've ever met. Can't even get a full minute on the phone with him a lot of the time. But I said, give me 3 days over Christmas and we'll catch a Marlin. But you got to give me 3. And I knew when he was in Sydney and when he was leaving, and the first day he said, no, I'm going to go to the beach. And the next day, I'm going to do something with the girls. And then so he left me 1 day. And I said, well, we've got 1 day. I said, I know where we can go, where we'll definitely have an altercation with 1 or 2 of them, but I haven't been there fishing myself for a few months, or a month, but we have to go that way. And it's a long run. And so we put the long run together, and I was worried the whole way. Like I was burning. I estimate I was going to burn about 2,000 litres of diesel for 1 day's fishing, which, is a lot to some and not much to others, I guess. But it was a long way for a Sydney fisherman to run 80 nautical miles. I remember slowing down, putting the gear in the water. I'd never fished on the boat before. I didn't have everything set up correctly. Hadn't spent enough time on the boat. And we had some bags of fishing tackle and put it out and caught a marlin within the first hour. That was cool. We ticked that box, and then the day just got better. We had a double header on and caught another 1 or 2 for his mates. So we ended up with 4 marlin, I think 4 or 5 marlin. And then there was a little trailer boat next to us and said, hey, we had no name on the boat. I don't think it had Red Joe stickers on it either at that point. And they said, hey, Grey Viking, there's a whale shark here. Are you interested? And I'm like, oh, that's rare. So we drove over to the whale shark, and the whale shark swam straight over, and Wes's son said, can I jump in with it? And I said, sure. And he jumped straight over the side, and I thought, this is just And the day's weather got better and better and better. And then I said, guys, we can run in and we'll be back in Sydney by 5:30 if we leave now. And they're like, yep, let's do that. And so that boat is such an amazing running boat, as you've experienced. We ran back at 33 knots. It chews up the miles so fast.
Yeah.
And we were back home in the pen, caught 4 marlin, or in and out of Sydney in the same day. And I think Wes thought, oh, this is easy. Like it's, and I said, it's not going to be like this all the time.
Yeah.
We did a few more days out of Sydney, and then we made the draft to take it up. And he's got a large business with a lot of staff. And I said, here's what, if I had your boat, this is what I would do. And I can't commit to a full season like a charter guys can, doing 90 days away. I still had work commitments of my own back here. I wasn't full time doing it for him. But I said, this is what I can do and remain married and
and a good dad.
And everything else. And I said, but this is a draft. Have a look at it. Tell me what you think. And he said, yeah, that's what we're doing. Just then gave it back to me. So then,
what was in the plan?
Delivering the boat from the Gold Coast to Cairns, and then starting doing the trips with his staff. So basically, he'd fly up, 5 or 6 staff, and me and Lockie, a crewman, would go out and take him out and take him fishing. And I had people just come and help in the interim. Like I had my brother come and help for a trip. I had Jay Kim from Fishing Station come up and help with Wes and his sons, and just tried to piece together a season where we could experience the reef the best way possible. We weren't looking to set records to catch the most, but I myself personally wanted a few altercations with big Marlin.
Yeah.
And our second day fishing on the first trip, we ran into a big one and had it on for, I can't remember the total length of the fight, 3 hours or something. It was
wow,
an epic amount of pressure and hands in the reel, and broke the angler and had to get another angler in.
God.
I don't think Brett Harvey will ever get in a game chair again. but
did not catch the bug.
Yeah. But everyone saw the big Marlin, saw the exposure to it. So
it's such an atmosphere.
Yeah, and I didn't have luck with Wes that trip. Kleiny had a great day fishing number 10. We were at Lizard Island. I thought I'll go out there and fish, and we went out there and had like 2 bites and caught 1, and that was too much for them. They want to do the bottom fishing, and we got to do the snorkeling, the bottom fishing, and I think they came away from that thinking, how much? Where else does this happen?
Yeah.
And that whole part of the coast, especially from the Whitsundays north, but even from the top of Fraser Island north, is just
it's special.
Epic boating, playground. So we got to make a season to do that again this year. And the big hole in our season as well was the delivery of the Valhalla that he had already committed himself to, buying Maverick, which is now down here. We got to take fishing on Sunday.
Oh, cool.
So we had to do that boat delivery in all that. So in the September period, Nigel and I flew over and accepted the boat in Atlantic City, and with the help of Nicky, an American captain / legend that as well. He captained the boat. I was sort of helping him along as well, but we delivered it all the way down to Florida, gave it a shakedown run, worked out a few things we needed to repair, and then Wes flew in and we went over to did a trip out to the Bahamas and back. So I never thought I'd be living that sort of lifestyle.
So cool.
Yeah.
How many amazing destinations can you take your boat? I think that's just what you need to live by when you talk to, I guess, people like this, right? Because that's all they want to do. They want to do something unique, something fun, and it ticks all the boxes, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Plus you can share it with other people, which is the main thing.
Yeah, and the areas I'm experienced in, I'm the best sales advocate for going to the Great Barrier Reef or any of those places. But if you've got the boat or you've got the time but you don't have the knowledge, you need the help. And that's where I think but there's only, what we've got to do is train a few more people so we can scale it a bit, I suppose, and help even more and get it a bit more out there. It's definitely something that lots of people want to do and probably have the capacity to do, but they don't for the fear of the unknown. It's an expensive thing to do, but something that I don't think anyone's going to be lying on their deathbed thinking, geez, I wish I didn't go. And I'm glad I've got those few more dollars in the bank.
Yeah.
They're memories you never forget.
Oh, 100%. Most of the time I'm not fishing when I'm out with you. I'm getting content, right?
Yeah.
From someone who's been in the industry a really long time, you've seen kind of iterations of how people advertise or market themselves or show their successes and grow businesses. What do you think that impact is?
The industry's got to grow without the people coming into it, without you making content that brings in new people. Adding people to the industry and not trying to resource from within can only be done by marketing. It can only be achieved by putting content out there that people like watching, which you obviously make. I'm not talented at. I mean,
get some good GoPro footage.
Yeah, I can, and I did have a YouTube channel and all that stuff, but that was purely for our own entertainment. But if you're making good content and you're bringing new people into, especially the sport fishing segment that are going to A, buy a boat, or B, come and want to do more fishing, that's just going to add to the pool. And as we make the pool bigger, there's a bigger market share for everyone. So adding content, creating content, getting more people into the sport can never be frowned upon, I don't believe.
What about the story side of things? Because that's something that I'm really passionate about, that I do help. And it's, yes, creating like a quick reel on Instagram is great, like of an exciting boat riding and looks beautiful and stuff, but I think there's something else there that is aligned with what you're saying when you do things with a story behind it.
Yeah, well, the videos you've made of your trips with Ryan and stuff on the reef, it's going to make more people want to go, right? There's never going to be so it's going to make that industry bigger, whether it reflects straight onto Kleiny's business or someone will reach out to someone else in that field. It's always going to add to it. It doesn't make you not want to go.
Yeah, this is true.
And
Very
if you
true.
win on Sunday, you normally sell on Monday. So trying to push the envelope that what you're doing is the best, or trying to do the best, it's only going to trend upwards.
Yeah. Well, I think it's great to share the stories of like people's actual experiences like yours, and
Yeah. I think I'm horrible for it. I get more reserved about it as I've gotten older. I was probably more active on social media when I was younger, but now I find it a distraction. I like looking at other people's stuff, but if I've had a good day fishing, I don't want to get on social media and tell people about it straight away because I don't have the time.
looking for your spot.
Yeah, I don't have the time to have the phone calls with them.
Yeah.
There's the distraction side of it, the selling side of it, like I'm a great advocate of how amazing those Vikings are of being able to run. I'm getting to run them, but the bias side of it is I still love my own boat and I'll happily jump on in and go fishing any day. But they're an amazing piece of equipment that you can only sell by winning on Sunday.
Yeah, that's awesome. You've obviously caught a few marlin in your day. As an accomplished marlin fisherman, what do you think are the biggest things that contribute to successful marlin fishing? Top 3 tips.
There's no substitute to time on water. So it's not something that you should expect to go out and nail straight away. They're an apex predator. They're not everywhere. So working out where they are and where they're not is the first tip, and not thinking it'll happen on the first day, not putting in one day and saying, geez, I just wasted a day. A lot of the time when we're tournament fishing, we're pre-fishing. So we're fishing the day before, not to score a point, but just to get an idea of where to go the next day. And you can work with SSTs and look at current charts and work out an area that you think's right. Go there the day before the comp and it's not right. So that works. So suddenly you've worked out where to not to go the next day, which was why I told Eugene we had to go fishing a few days in a row to try and put the piece of the puzzle together.
Do you recon work?
Yeah, do a bit of recon work out where to go fishing, which can be easy at times. It can be hard. And sometimes there's lots of them, sometimes there's not.
Yeah.
Working at those, knowing it's not going to happen straight away.
Setting expectations and understanding where you need to go.
Yeah,
I think number 1. What's number 2?
Number 2 is rigging all your gear the right way. Like Sydney's blessed to have Alex's shop, who's you had on here already. Alex.
Fishing station, yeah.
Yeah. I don't need to rig gear for people. I just tell them to go in and see Alex and J. Kim. And
you have confidence it's done perfectly right.
Yeah. I say get some lures this size. I don't care which ones you buy whatever ones you like. Get them about this size. Yeah, choose your favourite colour, your favourite head shape, whatever you like. Make sure they rig it, and they rig it this way, and come back with, 5, 6, 7 of them, and these rods rig their way, and we're not going to have a problem with that side of it.
So setting yourself up for success with the tackle.
The
proper
correct tackle. Yeah.
That's rigged well and you have confidence in.
Yeah, and getting advice from the right guys.
And what's number 3?
Number 3 would be, if you are going to go marlin fishing, sticking to it, not getting distracted, not doing a half day of that and then a half day of flathead fishing. If you really want to catch a marlin, you've got to, focus your effort on it. Probably outside of a tip is just making sure you're prepared for it on a boat sense, where you're going in your boat. If you're inexperienced, you're going a long way offshore where help is a long way away at times. And so you've got to make sure you are confident with your wiring, your bilge pumps, bilge alarms, make sure your outboard service, make sure you're carrying more fuel than you need, all that side of it, which is not the sexy side of the sport, let's face it.
Yeah.
No one wants to hear that advice.
No. But it's
but
more important than catching a marlin. Yeah.
But it's more making sure you can come back. Yeah. And having enough fuel in reserve if the weather turns, or I say it to guys, have enough fuel that you could change spots if you hear somewhere on the radio. Being in a fishing club that's local to you, that are willing to chat and share knowledge on any given day, or have a group chat that says, I went here, directs you to where to go the next day. Or if you're out fishing, you're in the wrong spot, you've got enough fuel to go somewhere else.
Pitching marlin is pretty much the best, most fun way that I've experienced to catch a marlin. What are the top 3 tips to make sure you do that successfully?
I suppose having a switched on crew is the biggest part. Even day-to-day fishing, making sure your crew aren't sleeping, or that is a big part of seeing the action. Having your reels set up, like those Talica reels set up that they can free running drag. So when you do pitch the bait back, you're not going to bird's nest it, etc. Not really worrying about from a marlin aspect. We're not fly fishing, so the marlin, once they sees the bait you're putting back there, wants to eat it. So you don't really need to do the teasing side of it. You just need to, I think people get a bit confused in bait and switch fishing where they think you've got to tease it all the way in, where in reality, all you're doing is the fish is presenting itself behind the teaser to let you know it's there. You pull the teaser out of the water and you put the bait straight back. In our instance, when we're tournament fishing, we're putting more than one bait back and trying to fish for multiple hookups. That side of it is a big part of it. Not delaying. Having bite indicators if you don't know what a marlin looks like. Some people I can point a marlin with a dorsal fin this far behind the teaser and say, there it is, and they still don't see it. So
yeah, you have some otherworldly vision when I've been up there with you.
Well, trained eye. Yeah. I've spent a lot of time, a lot of boring hours. Well, they're not boring for me. I never get bored hunting or looking. That's one that's never, ever bored me, marlin. That's why I like driving so much, because you're constantly thinking, where can I go? What can I do? What changes? Should I look to troll a different direction? All those sort of stuff. But having a bite indicator on your teasers as well, either having it so it clips out of a clip, or you have some sort of clip that'll pop or a band that'll snap so you know you've had a bite.
Yeah.
Driving around with hookless teasers is something that most people found pretty foreign when it first started. Now it's a lot more widely done, especially off Sydney, where striped marlin are by far the most plentiful fish there. Yeah.
Awesome. How would you handle this situation? So big marlin close to the boat and suddenly dives deep. What do you do as the captain up top?
Well, it depends on what line class it's on, but normally it sounds counterintuitive, but you push the drag up and you're not trying to forcefully slow it down, but you're trying to get all the stretch out of the line. So you've got a direct indicator to the fish, and then depends on what path it's taken, but normally you would go down current. So that's to try and make sure you don't have a belly in the water. So if you pull the line, if you drive up current of the fish, you generate a belly, and then you're not direct to the fish at all. You're pulling across the surface. You think you're pulling the fish up, but you're not. So pulling down current and trying to lead the fish, that, and understanding that and setting your reels up that you can fish a lot of drag. So all the reels, doesn't matter what reel you own, you should be scaling the drag back the front. You should be setting the maximum drag at about 50% of the breaking strain of the line. So if you've got 24 kilo line, you set your sunset at 12 kilos, and then you backwards mark the 8 kilo marker. And that works all the way down the line classes. So when you're tournament fishing and you're trying to fish lighter line to score more points, if you've got someone that's fishing 5 kilos of drag on 10 kilo line, you've got a really direct connection to the fish. You can catch it a lot quicker. You've got the opportunity that you could break it off, but that's where the skill part of it comes in.
Right. Yeah.
Between the angler and the boat driver, trying to understand when we want the drag and when we don't want it. When I'm driving a boat, I don't want the anglers adjusting it too much. I'll tell them to play with it a bit, but I'll say, right, push the drag to here now. So
I've definitely got yelled at for touching the drag before.
Not by me, did you?
No. Once and only once.
Yeah, understanding that and running the whole, trying to catch a fish quicker. But if a fish does sound, understanding current direction and trying to put that into your favour straight away so you're not fighting two things is a big part.
Yeah, it's so cool to understand the process, because you're backing down, you think, or you're chasing the fish or whatever, but to understand why you're doing that is very cool.
Yeah, and understanding, trying to not leaving the drag at the same setting and just following the fish out to sea. If you try and direct it, I always say to people, very hard to pull a horse backwards, but if you get in front of it and you can pull him along pretty good, and you can probably direct him where you want him to go by pulling his head around. So if you know the marlin's hooked in the mouth and it's not worried about, and it's a big marlin for the line you're on and it's heading out to sea, you can get out in front of it and put a bit more drag on and try and pull it forward, or rub the leader around on its mouth a different way to upset it to get it to come to the surface. Then you've got the opportunity to drive like a madman and get a tag in it. And if that process repeats itself, that's when you start implementing a little bit more drag at a time. So you don't go to sunset straight away. You do it incrementally, because if you go to sunset and the fish reacts once, then it stops reacting. You don't get as many opportunities, where if you can put a little bit of drag on, get it to react, then it settles down. And you put a little bit more drag on, get it to react. You got to get yourself a few, especially on light line. That Port Stephens we just fished with what were large black marlin on 10 kilo line, catching 70 and 80 and 90 kilo black marlin on 10 kilo line is challenging. And so that's where all those tricks come in. And trying to do it quickly, because you're trying to score. You don't have a lot of time up your sleeve.
Yeah, right. Oh, so much to think about.
Yeah.
And so,
Yeah.
but also like so exciting. I'm sure a few ways to do it as well, but like that's obviously one of the proven ways that works for you.
Yeah. Oh, there's many ways to skin a cat.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You've had some pretty special experiences. I think we've talked about a few of them. One that stands out to me, when I first met you, you told me about the fact that you were on the boat with Al Mulgashan when the Mako bit the Marlin. When
Yeah,
it
bit it in
filming
half.
it.
Yeah.
Take me back to that from your perspective. Like, what was happening? What were you guys doing, and what happened?
We were having a good day. We're fishing off Port Stephens. I was there to help Al, and Al was filming it. We had Phil Bolton from Fisheries, who was the angler, who's like heads up the New South Wales Tag and Release program, and we had a policeman on board, which later I thought about was probably a good thing.
That's fantastic.
A maritime copper. We'd already had a marlin jumping around the boat. We'd already caught a marlin that morning. That marlin had a free swimming fish with it. And so we kept fighting the marlin, but Al hopped in the water and swam off with the free swimming marlin. And he went a long way away. Like
it wasn't even next to you didn't even have the bill. He just
No, this was before the
in.
Mako incident. This is the fish before it. So he disappeared off and he got heaps of amazing underwater footage of this free swimming marlin. The marlin was super curious at him and like this, but he got a long way away to the point where we had to like stop chasing our marlin and tell him to come back and intercept him, got him back on board. So then we hook up another marlin. It was sort of mid-morning and we see this big mark on the depth sounder below the marlin. I'm like, there's another marlin here. Feed out a bait. So we fed out a bait. Nothing came up. And the marlin was fighting like incredibly hard, like just was not budging from the depth it was on. And Al doesn't like fishing light line. So we're pulling a lot of drag, trying to get it up. It just wouldn't budge. And this mark stayed there the whole fight. And we kept going around and around in circles and the bait never got eaten by what we thought was the other marlin. We pulled the bait in. And then we eventually got the marlin up to the boat and grabbed hold of it by its bill. And Phil's reached out and Al's jumped in the water to film it and photograph it. He's got a GoPro or an action cam running on the side of his camera. None of us saw the shark because the shark come up from underneath the boat, like from the opposite side. So Phil's holding the boat side, the same side I'm on. And I just heard the muffle come out of Al's thing, just, like that was the first thing I heard. And then he's put his head up and said, it's a fucking big Mako eating it. And it was shaking its head. And I just said to Phil, let it go, thinking that like didn't realise at what point it had it because I couldn't see the shark. But I'm driving the boat. It's a single engine trailer boat. And he's here. And then when the shark got the marlin in half, it turned around. And so I've got Al in the water here looking at me. I'm looking at him. And we've got like what is a 180, 200 kilo Mako shark between me and him. And I've got nothing. It's not a twin engine diesel boat where I could spin the boat over the shark. I can't. Only way to get to him is by driving away from him effectively. And the water turned to blood in amongst us. And Al took the photos, but there was that white-eyed moment of like, fuck, what are we going to do? And the Mako actually bit the marlin's tail off. And then I looked out the side and it followed the marlin's tail down as it pirouetted down. It swam off down. And I looked at Al and the water was like red with blood. And I said, Al, just swim straight. And we had a side door in it. And that's the audio. You can hear me. I said, swim to the boat, swim straight to the boat. And he pulled him in and we all, in shock. But we're also a bit, man, that could have gone a lot of ways. And Al's commentary on it is right. That shark could have bit him or eaten him at any point. Obviously wanted the marlin, but I got Al's footage, obviously went viral and I got in trouble off my mum for fucking swearing. So.
And here you are again swearing.
I said, I think I said, holy fuck, and it got blipped.
Oh, good.
Yeah, so that was quite an experience.
Do you think that was the scariest moment on the water you've had, or do you have another scariest moment that stands out to you?
Yeah, everyone's had their fair share of failures or things go wrong on boats. Or
was it when I dropped the drone and then you nearly minced me?
Yeah, well, you dropping the drone in the water and me instantly clicking the boat in reverse and then you jumping in and me trying to make sure I'm not in reverse. That was a worry.
It was nearly part of a Viking.
Yeah. I don't think I was in gear, but you have that horrible, as any captain would, you have that horrible second of he's gone in the water and the boat's going backwards. Like that was probably the most wide-eyed moment where I thought that shark didn't have to do much to Al for that to be a fatal accident, but it did not show any interest in him. It was quite strange. Well, probably not strange, but there's not many opportunities for a photographer and a wild mako to be in the water.
Hey, I mean, from the photo side of things, like I would have been frothing and like scared, but like, oh my God, I'm so happy that happened.
Yeah. And we wanted the footage that showed from the boat that showed it was not a pole camera, which was the footage overhead, which showed, boat, marlin, mako shark, owl. And that was pretty crazy. We broke a prop shaft on Murrifin with Eugene on board, like from Kalastaa. And that was pretty hair-raising for a few minutes because we thought, the prop shaft has slipped back and we don't have one engine. We think we are sinking. But just, I suppose, my brother and I just clicked into gear and we know where everything is on the boat. So there was just orders getting barked out and I was at the helm. He jumped in the engine room. Then I jumped in the engine room and then we stemmed that and got that fixed up. So that could have been a lot scarier than what it was.
I saw one time too on maybe it was 2 years ago up on the reef when you guys came and there was a lunch tray tacked onto the hull.
Oh, a bit of chopping board, yeah.
It was a chopping board.
Chopping board material, which was green, the same colour as our boat.
That was fantastic.
No, that was, I was on board Little Audrey when that 600-pound marlin jumped in and that footage went viral. All those GoPros captured that. Amazing. Yeah, and frisbeed the backrest of the game chair into the deckhand's head. That's a bit of wild footage that I was there for. But that's all over in a split second. And, the Marlins left a big pile of chaos and strewing people and outriggers broken and stuff, but everyone's okay. The Marlin that hit Murrifin, that's the second one that's, it was a 300-pound Marlin on 130-pound line. It did this big running around jump on not a lot of drag, just on the initial hook set drag. And I thought, this thing's not going to be, it's, you want to catch them quick, as you know. And I thought, I'll just back off down sea and lined it up. And when I got close to the Marlin, it looked like it was spent. It had just done this, would have been 250-metre long jumping arc. And then as soon as we got near it, it just snapped and went into this big arc. And there's no way you could outmaneuver it. And it came around and jumped and hit us on our port side, put its bill through the side of the boat and its bottom jaw and went in on the waterline. But, the shape of a marlin's bottom jaw meant it was like a funnel effect. So as the boat was rocking, we jump in the lazarette and we're now sinking, like very slowly. Yeah. So that ended up that finished our day, and you were obviously up there with Kleiny. And that's why I think it was funny you sent me those drone photos and you can see all of us looking over the side. Right. We were all trying to piece together what we do, and we're lucky we got like an awesome crew of fish with us, a couple of builders like Stewie and Dan. And we just sort of went about the process of nutting it out. We got a bit of chopping board material and we looked at it, and we had a Makita battery drill and the screws and Sikaflex and gasket tape. It was windy that day. I don't know if you can remember, but I was in the tender. I felt responsible because I put the boat in that position. So I'm in the tender with a battery drill and this contraption of a patch we made, like a bit of a Band-Aid. And we tapped the bill all the rest of the way into the boat with a hammer. And like you can imagine, you've got a 1.5 foot high chop wave coming through. I think it was high tide as well. Yeah. So there's a fair bit of wave action coming over the reef, and I'm in a tender tapping this bill back into the boat. And then we got the patch, and I thought, I've got one go at this. And we had it all pre-drilled. Took a bit of time to make it, maybe an hour of dicking around and coming up with plans.
Well, it's not like you haven't built a boat before. So.
Had it covered in Sikaflex and a battery drill, and I was looking at the waves, and I'm like, I've got one go at this, and I've put one screw in and it like lined up perfect. It was even level with the waterline. And I just looked at my brother. I said, I can't fucking believe this. This is perfect.
We can leave this on.
That patch did like 1,000 miles. We put the remaining screws in and the battery drill ran underwater and we washed it out with fresh water and it still works. Wow. And then good advert for Makita. Yeah, and then when we got into Cairns, that was the second time we took our boat to Cairns. We left it light on fuel, so the patch was high out of the water, and we put a nice Sika bead around it, and then that travelled all the way home with us. It fished all the next season, the remaining next season, and then when we slipped the boat, that's when we repaired it.
Amazing.
Yeah.
But what a blessing, I think, to also understand how the boat's built, how it works, so you can use your knowledge and critical thinking to address situations that could be disastrous if you didn't have that knowledge.
Well, the most vulnerable feeling I feel driving around other people's boats is thinking, do we have enough bits and pieces and spares on board, spare hose, spare things, spare bits of wire, cables, crimps, multimeters, tools, like your inventory list as you need things, as you get more experience, just grows and grows and grows to the point where it's not like a little bag of tools. It's a drawer full of stuff, like all cupboards full of stuff.
You are the Swiss Army knife.
Well, it's not just me. There is
everyone.
Everyone.
Yeah.
Like me, my brother, Stewie, Dan. That we all came to it with that. But we've had other parts. Yeah,
A crew of MacGyvers.
well, people that you know aren't going to fall away under pressure, like when that prop shaft broke, and my brother's barking out orders, and everyone's understanding, and knowing what to do.
It helps a lot.
It helps a lot. Yeah, being someone that can operate under pressure, like fight or flight sort of scenario, and that stuff's going to happen. The more you're on the water, the more chance you're going to have a failure of some sort, which will put the hairs on your neck stand up.
Always an adventure.
Yeah.
I've got some rapid fire questions for you.
Yeah.
Favorite spot in Sydney to find marlin?
Straight out the front, on the shelf, closest point straight to Sydney Heads. That's been our go-to spot in Callister, and never seems to fail us for some reason.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Most memorable catch?
Probably that marlin I spoke about earlier with Dad. There's been a lot of marlin that are bigger than that, and some that have completely destroyed us, like the one on Viper. And we had another event on Kestel where we had a fish on for 5 hours and broke the angler, broke me. I had it on the leader for 20 minutes of my GoPro footage and could never budge it, could never pull hard enough, So I've had some pretty amazing encounters, but that one with Dad was probably more just circumstantial, such crazy good timing. Dad was only there for one day.
What's something you always bring with you? Maybe an unexpected thing you always bring on the boat?
Though now the binoculars, like the gyro stabilized binoculars, they've found me so many things.
They are glued to your head a lot of the day.
Yeah,
on and off. Yeah.
Every 15 minutes looking through those, you can see into the future. You're looking so far ahead of where you're trolling, and you can see, you go, what boat's that over there? Well, you can look at it, you can tell. But they're an amazing piece of equipment and something that changed my fishing a lot as soon as I got them.
What's a lesson learned from a challenging day on the water that you've always carried with you?
Fish with your own eyes, not someone else's. Don't run to someone else's spot. If you're in a fishing comp and you hear someone catching them somewhere else and you're semi-confident where you are, when you're a bit inexperienced, you pick up and move, and then you get there and they know what they're doing, where they are, and you're new to the area, so you've got to try and work it all out inside the time frame. It's hard. And so
if you could fish anywhere in the world, where would it be and why?
Great Barrier Reef, without a doubt. And anywhere along it. I love the top of it because it's so remote. I've caught some giant marlin down the bottom of it. It's the best adult playground.
It really is. True or false? Do fish really stop biting on a full moon?
False.
What's the silliest mistake you've seen on the water?
Not taking enough fuel.
Live bait or lures?
I like everything. Live baiting will catch you more, but you got to be in the right spot. Lures is a search pattern. Live bait's when you know when they are.
One big one or a bunch of smaller ones?
Depends on the place, and the timing of if it's a tournament, lots of small ones would be handy, especially if there's a big cash prize for most released.
Yeah.
But one big one definitely is the one that sticks in your brain. You never forget the big one. So you can switch bait 1,060 kilo striped marlin. They all look amazing, but one big blue marlin, you don't forget that fish in a hurry, but you certainly don't remember all the small ones.
Yeah. What's a common fishing belief you disagree with?
Don't fish on the full moon. I like going fishing whenever you can. I think you learn more the more you go, the more time. There's no substitute time on water. Wettest hooks catch the most fish. So you get a lot of people that will say, don't fish on full moon, don't do this, don't do that. I've had some of the best days ever on a full moon. Make excuses to go, don't make excuses not to.
Yeah, I like that. Words to live. I'm at plaster there. Get out of the studio.
Yeah.
Finish the sentence. The worst thing about owning a boat is?
The expense.
The best thing is?
The time with your family.
Describe your worst fishing trip in one word.
Rough. Rough.
Yeah. What are the qualities of the worst person to bring on a boat?
The ones who want to bring all their own tackle.
Yes, fill the rod room or everywhere. You've done a lot of things in the industry for yourself, things you're passionate about, for other people. You've had a great time. You've had a really successful career so far, and there's a lot more of really cool stuff to come for you, I know.
Yeah.
What do you think that's due to? If you could put your finger on one thing, whether it's a quality or a trade or something, what is it?
Hard work definitely gets you everywhere. Matt didn't offer me the jobs to do in my cabling business because he thought I was lazy. He obviously saw me working on the boat, thought he works hard. No deckhand doesn't get employed because he doesn't work hard enough. If you're eager enough and you work hard enough, I was pretty terrible deckhand to start with. I was pretty good by the end of the first season. Well, getting better, but you're always learning. There's always things you tune and chop and change. So nothing's ever going to replace hard work, and nothing's ever going to replace experience as you get more experienced, you see things, you do things a bit differently. There's things I could have done in tournaments on Murrifin that would have won us more tournaments. I look back in hindsight and I was just the inexperience. Took over. I didn't see the right thing. I didn't do the right thing. I ran over the fish for the wrong reason. Whatever. There's been experiences there where you can't replace hard work or time. The saying I hate the most is fake it till you make it, which is a common one.
Yeah.
You need to put a lot of time in, but you're better off asking the right people the right questions and pretending you know. And that's something I've learned as I got older. Like we built a boat, so we wanted to do all the work ourselves. And then you get exposed to someone that knows the trade way better than you do. And you start to realise in your older age that, hey, if I employ this guy to do this job, he's going to see stuff that I don't see and potentially repair a problem I don't know about.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which has happened with Stubbsy doing stuff for us from onboard or other trades, that know more experience than us. So
yeah, I think working hard but being humble, like humble enough to ask for what you don't know or for help.
Seek advice from the right people.
Yeah,
I always looked at the people I wanted to be like, the Brett Thomas and Hoggy. They went fishing all around the place everywhere, and wherever they went, they took success with them. That was a trade I couldn't do on Murrifin, but I could definitely do it if I fished with a few other people.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah.
Roddy, it's been a pleasure. I love your stories, man, and spending time together. I think whenever we're out on the water and off the water, it's always a good time. And so thanks for being on. This is awesome chatting about your story.
No worries, Steve. Thanks very much for the opportunity.
Yeah. So if anyone that wants to follow Roddy, find him on Instagram, I believe, at Roddy Findlay. And if you enjoyed this episode, please share it with someone who would too. I know Roddy's got an awesome story with a lot of insights that a lot of people would love to hear. So catch you all next time on the Rising Tidecast.